Imagine two hikers, let's call them Emily and Kate. They're identical in many ways, same age, background, temperament. One day they set out on a bushwalk and end up getting lost with the dark of night approaching. Now, Emily's father is an experienced hiker. He knows this area really well, and he's promised her that if she wasn't to be home by dinner, that he would come and find her. He's rescued many other people before, and she trusts that he can do it again. Kate, however, has no one to count on and feels completely alone. So as the darkness deepens, Kate becomes paralyzed by fear. She's starting to imagine the worst, but Emily remains calm, trusting her father's promise. This trust allows her to think clearly, to comfort Kate, and even take steps towards making it easier for her father to find them. So here we have two similar women in the same situation, yet reacting very differently. Why? Because they have different hopes for the future. And what I think this illustration helps us to see is that it's not just our circumstances that shape how we live and move, but it's our belief about the future that influences how we will handle things in the present. Numerous psychological and social studies confirm this about human nature. We are hope-based creatures, but the Bible goes even further, explaining why this is so. Let me just give you the answer before we break it down. Christian hope is confident expectation, grounded in the character and promises of God, which empower us to live with peace and resilience in the present, bringing lasting transformation in preparation for our ultimate future with God. So first, Christian hope is confident expectation grounded in the character and promises of God. Many people today see hope as a kind of wishful thinking shaped by modern ideas that emerged during the European Enlightenment. This period brought belief that humanity could create a better future for ourselves through things like science and technology without the need for God and all of that religious baggage. And for a while, it looked like progress was being made until the 20th century came, and with it wars, conflicts, social upheavals that shattered any sense of stability. Today, we live in a time marked by division and uncertainty, which has affected how we think about hope. It often feels like hope is just some sort of passive waiting game where we wish for good things to happen but aren't really sure if they will. So we use the word hope today in contexts like, I hope it doesn't rain today, or I hope that I will get that job. Christian hope is very different. Throughout the story of Scripture, hope is expressed as a confident belief in God's promises. So it's not just about wishing that things will turn out well for us or relying on our own plans and desires. It's strong and confident belief that God will keep his promises because of who he is. You see, just as Emily trusted her father to find her because he's done it before, Christians trust God because he has shown himself to be faithful throughout history. And this hope has two sides to it. The first is the objective side, where we trust God's promises because of his proven faithful track record. And second, it's the personal side, where God's promises give Christians a sense of direction and peace, even in very dark and uncertain times. So unlike this secular idea of hope that depends on circumstances or our own desires, Christian hope is based on the unchanging nature of God. And it's that confident expectation that God will fulfill his promises that makes Christian hope strong and resilient, especially when the going gets tough. But while Emily's father has promised to find her, God already has found us in Jesus. So Christian hope is a future expectation that's based on a past revelation, which is why the New Testament often refers to Jesus as our hope. We look to him. And what happens when we look to Jesus? This leads to a second point. Christian hope is confident expectation that empowers us to live with peace and resilience in the present. A story is told in John 11 about a man named Lazarus, a close friend of Jesus who becomes sick and eventually dies. Now, the family sent word to Jesus that this man was sick, but Jesus had delayed in his return, sending a message instead that this would not end in death. But Lazarus does die. So by the time Jesus does arrive in the small village of Bethany, Lazarus' sisters named Mary and Martha are understandably upset. They ask Jesus, why didn't he come sooner? But Jesus responds to them, telling them not to focus on the fact that Lazarus has died or even their Jewish cultural expectations that one day he would come back alive again at the end of time. Instead, Jesus tells these women to focus on him and his promise, saying, I am the resurrection and the life. And then he asks them, do you believe this? Now, eventually they go to Lazarus' tomb and Jesus raises him from the dead, making good on his promise and proving that he has the power of life over death. But amongst other things, I think this story goes to show that Christian hope in Jesus isn't just a passive waiting game. It's active. Jesus invites Mary and Martha to believe in him, and their hope leads to action. In the same way, Christian hope isn't just a feeling, it's a force that changes how we live. It's like the Battle of Helm's Deep in Tolkien's The Two Towers. Aragorn and his team are overwhelmed by the relentless onslaught of Saruman's army. All hope seems lost as they band the few defenders left and ride out to meet the enemy. But then dawn breaks. They hear the sound of the horns echoing over the horizon. It's the riders of Rohan led by Gandalf. Help has come, and with it, hope. Hope that animates Aragorn and his comrades to ride and fight and push through the difficulty. That is how Christian hope empowers us in the present. God, who is external to our situation in life, comes to meet us in the mess with Jesus, with a hope like breath into dry bones, light into darkness, truth into doubt, empowering us to view our circumstances differently, not as something that can defeat us, but as something we can overcome because of Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Christians can overcome because Christ has already overcome. And this leads to a third point. Christian hope is a confident expectation, bringing lasting transformation in preparation for our ultimate future with God. Peter calls Christian hope a living hope through Jesus' resurrection. It's an inheritance that can never be taken away. In other words, Christian hope doesn't just help us survive, it helps us thrive. It isn't just about getting through tough times, it's fundamentally about being transformed in those tough times by the hope we have in Jesus. There are many studies showing how expectations for the future affect behavior in the present. Financial incentives, personal motivations, rewards of some kind, all of this has been shown to influence people's behavior and actions. But what is the ultimate hope Jesus offers? We're not talking about working hard for some material reward here. We're talking about a free gift of life from the dead. And think about that. Resurrection is total transformation of a circumstance, namely death. So when you bring the hope of resurrection into any situation, no matter what it is in your life, how bad it is, how ugly it is, how messy it is, it has the power to completely change it. Think about the early Christians who faced severe persecution. What gave them the strength to stand firm and actively live out their faith? It was hope. Real, deep, biblical hope that was an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. They believed in God's promises so strongly that it changed how they lived every single day. They shared the gospel, loved their enemies, cared for the poor, and even faced death with courage. Well, fast forward now to the Nazi concentration camps of World War II. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust, observed that those who lost hope in the future were much more likely to succumb to despair and death, in contrast to those who maintained a sense of purpose and hope. You see, hope shapes everything: our character, our priorities, our purpose, our sense of identity. 1 John 3:3 says, everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure. The hope of seeing Jesus and becoming like him doesn't just comfort us now, it has the power to fundamentally change us. So what is Christian hope? It is a confident expectation grounded in the character and promises of God, which empower us to live with peace and resilience in the present, bringing lasting transformation in preparation for our ultimate future with God. And if being human means we all have hope, the question for everyone here, including you and me, is where do we place our hope? Is it in the things of this world, which depend on our circumstances? Or is it in something that transcends those circumstances, something that can lift you up and empower you and keep you going no matter how lost you feel or how dark things might get?